Line viewers, it's Mitch back here with another week of NFL picks, straight up and against the spread. Of course, we are live right now, so make sure you're in the comment section letting me know what you think of this week. Who do you have winning? Who do you have losing? Which are your bets of the week? Let me know in that comment section, and of course I will get to the live comments as we go along throughout this video. I'm excited for another week of NFL football. The first 2 weeks have been very exciting, filled with drama, and just filled with absolute electricity. There is no season like the NFL season, and week 3 is here, guys. Make sure, before I get into my picks, that you do Gronk spike the like button and subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more NFL previews, picks, and predictions just like this. Also, guys, make sure, like I said, get in that comment section. If you did miss this video live, make sure you're in the comment section below. I want to hear from you guys. I want to know who you're picking this week because it's always good to get different opinions. It helps me get better at this, and it also helps you kind of figure out what you think about the NFL this season as well. Put it out there. Let everybody see it. Let people hear your knowledge because I can only talk so much. So get in that comment section. Alright guys, I'm excited for another week of picks. I did pretty well last week. I did 12-4 overall straight up, and versus the spread, I believe I was 11-5. I wrote it down. I don't know if I put it on a piece of paper, and now the paper's not in front of me, but I was 11-5 versus the spread, which I'm very impressed with myself about that. But I was 12-4 straight up, so I'm excited, man. I've had two pretty good weeks, especially versus the spread. Right now, versus the spread, I'm 20-13, or 20-12, sorry, which is pretty good. I mean, that's really good. If you're hitting over 50%, I'm feeling confident right now with my picks. Hopefully week 3 is not the week where it all goes downhill for me, but right now I'm doing very well versus the spread and pretty well straight up. I hope you guys also are in that pick'em league that I set up before the beginning of the NFL season. Make sure if you're in there, make sure you're every week putting your picks in. I believe I'm third. I think 2 people are in front of me right now, so congratulations to you guys because I feel like I'm doing pretty well. And if you guys are beating me right now, that's uber impressive. So let's get into week number 3 and my picks. Let's start off with Thursday night football. Of course, it's the Tennessee Titans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is not the Blake Bortles Jags. This is actually the Gardner Minshew Jags, who has been a story in himself over the past week or so since taking over for Nick Foles when Nick Foles went down with an injury. The media loves this guy. NFL fans across the league love this guy. And of course, you guys know how I feel about him. And if you don't, go check out the video that I made about him in particular. When it comes to this game, Tennessee dominates this rivalry, which is enough for me to say that I will be taking the Titans in this game despite being on the road. And I know that in Thursday Night Football, there's a drastic advantage going towards the home team because it's a short week and you have to travel during that short week and it's a quick turnaround. The game plans aren't really as complex as they could be. It more comes down to pure football talent in these Thursday night games, and usually the home field is a big deal because the team on the road is banged up and they're having to travel, and it messes with their heads and messes with their physical body, and it takes a toll on you. So I understand all of that, but what I've seen with the Titans so far, I have been pretty impressed with what I've seen through 2 weeks. They did lose last week versus the Colts, but it was a very close game once again. They did week 1 they won. So I mean, overall they've looked pretty good. I really like their defense, and I honestly have more confidence in their defense than I do the Jags at this point. They're pretty steady up front. They don't give a lot in terms of rushing the football, and really Jacksonville has struggled in that department all season. Even with Leonard Fournette looking better than he has in years past, this run game has not been able to get going in the past couple of weeks for Jacksonville. If they want to win this game, it needs to get going or else they're not going to win. I really love their secondary. They can cover and they can match up with a lot of different teams across the league, and they will do so versus Jacksonville. They've traditionally taken, Jacksonville under 10 points. Like, they've held them under 10 points in multiple matchups over the past few seasons. And Derrick Henry traditionally goes off versus the Jags. So I expect Derrick Henry to have a big game in this game. And I have been impressed with what the Titans have done offensively in terms of some of what they've done with their scheme, especially last week. I like how they're using Marcus in some play action situations. I like their screen game a little bit more than I did last year. I just see a little bit more creativity and flow on the offensive side of the ball. They are trying to get Marcus Mariota going. He's just not really that talented, but he can win these games in a defensive showcase, so to speak, versus Jacksonville. And I do believe that Tennessee is just the overall better team. They have the better coaching, and I do think they will be better prepared even if this game is on the road. I also, big factor here, don't like the Jalen Ramsey situation. He will probably be traded, but him playing this week on Thursday, yes, he's a talented player. I think it distracts the team. I think it is a huge distraction for the Jags, and I think that does take a toll on their roster overall. I will be going with the Titans to win this game and to cover the 1.5. In the second game, starting on Sunday now, Cincinnati travels to Buffalo. Buffalo, -6 points. This is their home opener. All right, this is their home opener. They played 2 games in a row in MetLife Stadium. They played the Jets and they played the Giants. And they were impressive last week versus the Giants. Now, I don't think the Giants are very good. In fact, I think they're probably a bottom 3 team in all of football. But that being said, I mean, Buffalo was dominant on both sides of the ball. They were able to run the ball. Josh Allen looked fantastic. And by the way, Josh Allen has looked really good this year. Way better in terms of his accuracy. I mean, he's still making those plays behind the line of scrimmage to extend plays with his big arm and with his feet. And he's able to do all that, and the weapons are helping him out as well with John Brown and Cole Beasley. Devin Singletary looks very good. The offensive line is improved. The scheme I'm enjoying. And then defensively, Buffalo's one of the best in the game. And then you look at Cincinnati, and they had a pretty good game in week 1. They kind of surprised Seattle a little bit in Seattle. I still like what I've seen from the offense overall. Tyler Boyd is having a heck of a season so far. The offensive line isn't as bad as we thought it would be. And Taylor is doing some creative things offensively, and Andy Dalton's not playing bad. With the defense, though, the defense is really horrible. I mean, they played horrendous versus the 49ers. I understand they played the great Shanahan offense and all that, and the scheme kind of took hold of that game for the 49ers. But when I look at this game, I think Buffalo is just the better team. They're at home. I think they will cover because I think this crowd is going to be absolutely losing their minds because for the first time in at least a few seasons, this team is actually a legitimate playoff contender, like a team that can make the playoffs. And I think that the fans are going to be rowdy. I think it's going to be just a situation where Cincinnati does not want to go into this game. And I trust Josh Allen right now. I really like their defense. And I think McDermott overall can pretty much scheme up for anything that Taylor is going to throw at him. I don't think the Bengals have a good enough defensive line to really get after Josh Allen and stop this run game. I think that Buffalo will be able to run the ball. I think they'll be able to set that up with Josh Allen with using his legs as well. And I think they will cover the 6 points and win this game. I'm going to say that this game is going to be about 24-13 for the Buffalo Bills. Their defense is solid and their offense will do enough to win this game, similarly to the way that they beat the Giants in week number 2. All right. The third game is the Miami Dolphins heading to the Dallas Cowboys, and the Dallas Cowboys are, as you can see, major favorites, big time favorites in this game. -21.5 points. That's insane. All right. That's more than what the Patriots were favored in Miami versus the Dolphins. And the Patriots absolutely destroyed the Dolphins. And the Dolphins did not look very good. Who am I going to go with in this game when it comes to the spread? Because we know who I'm going with in terms of who's going to win. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys. And somehow the Miami Dolphins have gotten worse from a roster perspective. They just traded Minkah Fitzpatrick, one of their best players in their secondary. But the Dallas Cowboys also have had some injuries over the course of the last week. Michael Gallup has gone down. That is going to definitely hurt this offense for sure. The downfield passing attack, it will hurt that area of their team. Michael Gallup looked to be breaking out in his second season. And then Xavier Woods and the back end of their secondary is a loss as well, as that is already a weakness for this defense. And he was probably the better safety out of him and Jeff Heath. So that's going to be a loss there. So when you look at this game, for some reason, my mind is telling me to take Miami. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take Miami plus 21. I know that Miami sucks. They stink, whatever. But in one of these games, they're going to be close. And it's not like versus New England, they really weren't trying. Like, it wasn't an effort thing. They definitely are trying. So it's not the effort. It's not the actual passion of the team. It's just the talent, really. And I think in one of these games, I mean, Dallas is due for a little bit of a letdown performance. They did allow Washington in the game somewhat at the beginning, and that's kind of what I'm counting on here. Plus, Miami did play New England sort of competitively in the first half, at least from a scoreboard perspective, which is what matters with the spread. So I'm going to take Miami plus 21. I mean, 21 points is pretty ridiculous. Dallas might be able to score 34, but I do think Miami could score 14. So I mean, it's tough, and it's in Dallas, and this would be a lot easier if it was in Miami. I'm gonna take Miami because I honestly feel bad, and I want them to at least be competitive in one of these games. And as much as I love Dallas and everything about them right now, those injuries might impact them a little bit. And they're the Cowboys, and they do tend to have these weird games where they let down basically everybody in attendance. So I'm going to go with Miami covering with the plus the 21 points, but Dallas is going to win this game. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying anything towards the Cowboys not winning this game, but I'm going to say that Miami keeps it within 22. All right. So that's the first three games. I'm going to get to the comment section now. Let me know what you guys think of my picks so far. All right. If you guys haven't already, Gronk spiked the like button. Let's go. All right. Robot Guy says, what's up? What's up, Robot Guy? Tyree says, Jets versus Pats. Pats clearly. Robot Guy says, Mitch. Tyree says, yo, bro, sup? What's going on, man? Corrupt says, what's up? Blake says, Seahawks going to beat the Saints. We'll get to that in a little bit. Jeremy says, Pats piano. Nice. What? Ben says, it'd be awesome if you had a favorite bet segment at the end of these videos. I want to know which bets you're the most comfortable making. All right. Yeah, I was thinking about that for a while, and I was honestly thinking about doing this at the end of the video. So maybe I will do that for the first time in this video. Thank you, Ben, for that. And I will also try and post it as a separate video for people that are just interested in that alone. Simon says, what do you think of Chris Herndon and Golden Tate as stashes? Herndon would be good if Sam Darnold was there, and I do believe when Sam Darnold comes back, Herndon will be good. But as for Golden Tate, it's interesting. I think Golden Tate's not a bad stash because of all the injuries also in the Giants. He could just automatically become at least the number 2 in the passing game behind Evan Ingram. I don't mind them. You just have to take a look at your roster and what your needs are, and if there are better players in free agency. You know, like sometimes you can't, like, there's even a player, like, give me an example here would be Michael Gallup. Like, Michael Gallup's out for like 4 weeks at the very least. So that being said, some people may have to drop a guy like Michael Gallup just because there's so many good options to pick up in the early weeks of fantasy. So you kind of weigh the options. If you like these guys a lot, then sure, keep them on your bench. I would not recommend keeping 2 stashes, though. I think you only can keep 1. That's my opinion on that. One Pride says Titans. Tyree says Titans. Benjamin says I got Titans. Deshaun says Jacksonville. Sammy says Jags 15-13. Interesting. I will say Gardner Minshew gave them a chance to win last week. They probably could have beat the Texans. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Jags beat the Titans, but the Titans just seem to have the Jags number. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Bodo says Jacksonville's D is a mess. I think what he means. In Tennessee's defense is surprisingly good, top 5 so far this season. That's Bodo's analysis right there. Blake says Titans 31, Jags 17. I do not think Titans will score 31 points, but we'll see. Eat Your Sock says, hi Mitch, how's it going? What's going on? Eat your socks. Kevin Durkant says Bills 27-17. A lot of people have the Bills. Pretty much everybody has the Bills in this one. And what else do we have here? Cowboys by 50, says One Pride. Finns win by 10, says Trivia. Sammy says Cowboys 48-7. Chris says, can the Cowboys get a schedule? This is some high school stuff. Yeah, so far their schedule has been pretty weak. Deshaun Drakeford says 30-10. That's what I'm hoping for right there. 30-10. That would be perfect, which I could also see. And some people are saying, no, don't pick Miami. Chris says, by the time this season's over, they're going to have 40-plus extra picks next season. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right, guys. I am going to get to the next game. Let's get to the next game. The next game is the Denver Broncos versus the Green Bay Packers. In this one, Green Bay is favored by 8 points. And when I look at this game, I think it's going to be similar to the Broncos versus the Bears in a little bit of a way, where it's going to be a very defensive game. I think the Packers overall are going to dominate the Broncos offense. From what I've seen from the Packers defense, it's been very strong. I think the key for Denver for keeping this game close is how effective is their running game, which hasn't been very effective so far this season. They need to get better in that area. Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman, they just need to perform better. The offensive line needs to be better. Joe Flacco was not bad versus the Bears. Emmanuel Sanders continues to be a beast, but he's going to be in tough versus Jari Alexander, who, by the way, looks like a legitimate number one shutdown corner. When it comes to the other side of the ball, though, this is what I'm counting on here. I'm taking the Packers to win the game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Plus, it's in Lambeau, which is the extra little bit of oomph for me to be like, oh yeah, the Packers are going to win this game. Because in Denver, some things become sketchy. Because Denver can pull out a victory in Denver here and again. But when you look at the Packers, I think it's going to be defensive. It's going to be very close for about 3 quarters. And then when we hit the 4th quarter, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a drive where they go down, they take a lot of clock, and they're able to cover. So I'm going to go with the Packers winning and covering the 8 points. I think the 8 points is a pretty good spread, honestly, because I do see this game being around the 23 to like 12, 23 to 14s. It's going to be something like that, I think, for the Packers. And I think the 8 points is very tricky, but I am going to go with the Packers to win and to cover. I probably would not bet on this game. If I did bet on this game, I would probably do a teaser with the Broncos, and I would probably add the Broncos 6 points to that because I think they can definitely cover a double-digit spread. But the 8 points, I'm going to side with the Packers because I do think there is a world in a game, which I do see happening, where the Packers, they just hold the Broncos to a very limited amount of points, and then Aaron Rodgers is able to just come up with some big plays and win this game. Even with Vic Fangio knowing Aaron Rodgers and knowing how to scheme versus him, it seemed like the Packers were able to get a little bit of a run game going last week, and I just think overall they're just going to be too much. And the Broncos really need to start scoring some points, or else they're not going to be winning very many games this season. So that's my pick in that one. Then we have Atlanta at Indianapolis, sorry. And I do think that this is going to be a very good game, but I also do think that this is one of the worst matchups for the Atlanta Falcons on paper. When you look at it, I mean, the reason why Atlanta won that game last week was they were able to be fast. They were able, on defense, I'm saying, they were able to rush the passer. The Eagles didn't really commit to running the ball in a power style. And when I look at the Colts want to run the ball down your throat. They want to utilize play action. They want to wear down your defense. And that is everything that Atlanta is not good with, especially on the road. And Indianapolis has a big offensive line that's able to power and just win running the football with Marlon Mack. And that's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be similar to that Vikings game for the Colts offense and just being able to run the ball versus Atlanta. I think a big flaw, which I'll get to with Philadelphia, is they don't run the ball enough under center. And Indianapolis loves to run the ball under center. I think Frank Reich's going to look at Doug Peterson and be like, what were you doing? And Frank Reich is going to do what he wants to do. And Jacoby Brissett has played pretty well. He's been pretty clutch overall. T.Y. Hilton has been pretty good overall. I don't really know if they have anyone that can cover him one-on-one, which is going to cause issues. And when I look at the other side of the ball, I do think Atlanta is struggling on the offensive line. And as much as I do think Atlanta has the better matchups in terms of one-on-one versus the corners of Indianapolis, like I think Julio and Ridley and Sanu, those will be tough covers for the Colts. But the Colts defense is all about keeping you in front of you. And really, when I've seen Matt Ryan play this year, he's forcing a little bit too much and he's under pressure a lot. And I do think the Colts can get some pressure on Matt Ryan, specifically because they're on the road in this game. And I just see Indianapolis being, like I said at the beginning, a very, very difficult matchup for Atlanta. This is not really a shot at Atlanta or saying that they're not a good football team. I do think they're good. I just think that this is going to be a very difficult game for them because of the way that Indianapolis plays. And I do think that Indianapolis is slightly better than people want to give them credit. I do think they will win this game. I do think they will cover the 2 points. But that's interesting because Atlanta is going to be 1-2, and we'll have to see how they respond if they don't win this game. Also, a big thing is Atlanta's on the road. So, I'm going to go with Indianapolis here because, again, it's just a tough matchup. And maybe if this wasn't in Atlanta, I would take them. But because it's in Indianapolis, I have more confidence in going with Jacoby and the Colts. Okay. Next up is probably the game of the week. I mean, it's 2 of the top 3 AFC teams right now. It is the Baltimore Ravens going to Kansas City, going to Arrowhead. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. This game was fantastic last year, and I do think it's going to be fantastic once again. I do have the Kansas City Chiefs winning this game at home, and that's the biggest reason why, because they're at home. But I will take Baltimore plus the 7 points. I just think this is going to be a close game. I could see this game being a shootout. I think Lamar Jackson is going to be able to create big plays versus Kansas City. I first think that Baltimore will be able to establish the run, which is going to be difficult for Kansas City because that's going to keep Mahomes on the sidelines. And Lamar Jackson will be able to hit some big plays down the field the way that he's throwing the ball right now. Marquise Brown, the way he's playing. Mark Andrews. These are very difficult one-on-one matchups for Kansas City secondary and overall their team in general. I think the Ravens will be able to take advantage of that and be able to score points. But then when you look at the other side of the ball, I'm concerned with Baltimore in terms of will they be able to get pressure after Mahomes? And then I know Tyreek Hill is not there, but I mean, the things they're doing with the Andy Reid scheme and Hardman and Robinson and Kelsey and Watkins, even if Hill is not there, I just think Mahomes is too much right now. And, Baltimore, maybe they win this game. I legitimately think there's a chance they win this game. But it's in Kansas City. It's a tough place to play. And if it becomes a shootout, which I think it will, I will side with Kansas City in that one. Even if Baltimore has the better defense, Kansas City is so potent and they're so quick strike type of oriented that it's going to be difficult for Baltimore to eventually keep up. I could see Baltimore actually getting out to an early lead and then Kansas City making a little bit of a comeback and winning that way. We'll have to see. And I'm also intrigued to see how much Baltimore sort of takes from what New England's strategy has been versus Kansas City. That's kind of play heavy man-to-man, press coverage, blitz a lot after Mahomes, force him to get rid of the ball quick to his playmakers, and without Tyreek Hill there, you can do a little bit more in terms of creativity. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm very, very intrigued to see how Baltimore tries to play defense versus Kansas City, and I'm also intrigued to see how Kansas City can stop Lamar Jackson, because that's not going to be easy for them. But I do think at the end of the day, Mahomes is just too talented. Andy Reid is just coaching at a different level right now, and Kansas City, I think, are just slightly better than Baltimore, even if I love Baltimore right now. So I'm going to go with Kansas City in their home building of Arrowhead. All right, one more game, then I'll get back to the comment section. The Oakland Raiders take on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. This game might be the hardest for me to pick from a spread perspective because I think Oakland is being a little bit underestimated with this spread. I mean, the 8 points, in some places it's 9 for Minnesota, like -9. And I don't know if Minnesota has the passing attack to actually be able to blow a team out. Now, I understand that the game is in Minnesota, and they play a lot better there, and with Thielen and Diggs, they just strictly outman the secondary of Oakland. But Oakland plays very hard. They play physical, they play tough, and offensively, I mean, they weren't very good versus Kansas City, but they've had their moments here and there. Jacobs looks good. Tyrell Williams looks good despite being injured. Darren Waller looks good. Derek Carr has looked a little bit better than last year. And Gruden, again, has these guys playing hard. So this is an interesting one. I'm actually making the decision on the spread right now. I have Minnesota winning this game. No doubt about it. It's at home. I think they'll make enough plays on offense, running the football with Dalvin Cook, which is what they want to do, making a couple big plays with Adam Thielen. But Oakland's going to stick around in this game. I do think that Oakland keeps it within 2 touchdowns, but I don't know if they keep it within 1 touchdown. Right now, this says 8. I'm going to take Minnesota to cover. I just think Minnesota at home is a little bit too much. They do seem to get a little bit more out of their pass rush. They do seem to get a little bit more out of their special teams at home. And I could see this game where it's very tight for a while, and maybe it's like, it ends up being like 20-7, 20-10. I could see that very well happening in this game, and that's why I'm going to take Minnesota to win and to cover, because even though the game may feel like it's closer than the score indicates, it's still going to be like Minnesota's able to slow down Oakland's offense. And with Tyrell Williams banged up and injured, I'm not sure they have the weapons to be able to score versus Minnesota. So I'm going to go with Minnesota to win and to cover the 8 points here. All right, let's get back to the comment section, because I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about those games that I just went over. Again, guys, make sure that you spike the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, let's get to it. And if you have friends that aren't in this chat, get them in the chat, man. Let's get it going. What else do we have here? Okay. Man, there's a lot of comments. A lot of comments. Okay. Chris says... Oh, never mind. Kevin Urquhart says, Bro, Mitch, I'm 2-0 in Bottom Line View Fantasy. You're going down. Nah, I'm winning this week. I'm sorry. My team's pretty good in that league. I mean, it's not my favorite team I have, but it's pretty good, and I'm 2-0. One Pride says, what's up? What's up? Trivia says, anyone remember? I don't know what he's talking about. Bobby says, how about Mason for Pittsburgh and the trade? I've already made a video on that trade. Go check out that video if you haven't already seen it. Chris has the Lions winning by 13. Trivia says, remember Bills 2018 Week 3 last year? Anyone? That was versus the Vikings. I do remember that. Dakota says, I feel as if the Broncos could be the trap against Green Bay. I honestly don't see Denver winning, but I think optimism for us Bronco fans will grow if we beat the Packers. True, I mean, I don't think the Broncos will win either, as I mentioned, but I could see the game being close. I definitely could see it being competitive. I think it comes down to, like I said, the running game of the Broncos and how all that defense can do, and then we'll go from there when we watch the game. Football Guy says, Cowboys win 42-10. Deshaun Drakeford says, got the Bills over Cincinnati by 13 or 14. Chris says, I'm rooting for the Broncos this week. Green Bay super overrated. Bobby says, what do you think about the Pittsburgh situation? Again, go check out the video. What else? Rob says, Packers 28-10. Tyrese says, Packers 28, Broncos 25. Interesting. One Prize says, Broncos with the upset. Kevin Urquhart says, Packers 23-10. I like that score. Football Guy says... Packers 30-20. Blake says Steelers going 8-8 this season. Well, I think that honestly would be an accomplishment with Mason Rudolph as their quarterback without Big Ben. I think that would be an accomplishment. Chris says, I think it gonna decide by 4 points. Green Bay's new defense is suspect. I think their new defense is way better than last year. I mean, their defense is good. What else we have here? Kevin Urquhart says Packers are winning the NFC North. Bodo says my top 5 worst teams: Pittsburgh, Jets, Denver, Giants, the Fish. Sammy says Colts 22-20. Colts 21-13, says Rob. Colts 31-23. One Pride says Falcons. Chris says Packers got a 30% chance for the North. Kevin Urquhart says Falcons. Nick says I tune in at the right time. Fire. Football Guy says Colts 29-25. Blake says 21-13. Robot Guy says Atlanta 24-20. I may switch this. I'm not sure. Chris says Indy by 5. The GOAT Jacob says Bears 15-1. Ravens 34-31 bet, says Blake. 29-24 Chiefs, says Sammy. 34-27 Chiefs, says Rob. I'll give you my score. 30-27 Chiefs. That's my score. Dakota says the Ravens and the Chiefs game would be more than likely be yet another iteration of NFL's wet dream. At this point, what is a defense? I mean, the Ravens have a good defense. Can I stream Colts Falcons? I think I'm going to be streaming Ravens Chiefs, but we'll see. You guys can vote. What game should I stream this week? I'll give you a few options. How about the options could be Lions, Eagles, Colts, Atlanta. We could go Chiefs, Ravens, and then the Sunday nighter, Rams, Browns. Which game should I stream? Kevin Durkant says Vikings 28-10. Rob says Vikings 27-3. Football Guy says 28-25 Vikings. Trivia says 2013 Hawks D, 2017 Jags D, or 2018 Bears D. I have to go with the Legion of Boom there. I would rank Broncos 2015 second on that list. How much money did I lose? Well, I was going to win if they would have scored on that last. I think I lost 100, I think. I would have won 2,000. So, yeah. I was a little rattled because Jim Schwartz is an idiot. All right. Let's go to the next game. Next game is our favorite game of the week. It's the New York Jets at the New England Patriots. Do I have to say anything about this game? The Jets have their third string quarterback in. They don't look very good on either side of the ball. Adam Gase looks to be lost. What else do we have? Le'Veon Bell looks fantastic. I will say that, and I think he's answered the question whether or not it was the scheme and the offensive line of Pittsburgh, like all the Steelers fans wanted to say, or it was Le'Veon Bell. It was definitely Le'Veon Bell, guys. I'm just going to point that out. And on the other side of the ball, I think the Patriots might have the best defense in the league and a top 3 offense in the league, which we haven't seen very often in the NFL history, if not the last few years, especially the past 20 years. That rarely happens. But that might be the case right now. I'm sure Antonio Brown will be more involved in the game plan this week. I'm intrigued to see how the Patriots continue to utilize all the weapons at their disposal. The big question with the Patriots going forward is how does that offensive line hold up with the injuries to Isaiah Wynn and David Andrews? This is an area that could potentially derail this team. Can the offensive line stay healthy, or will the offensive line injuries hurt? They definitely won't hurt in this game, as the Jets have virtually no pass rush and not a very good secondary at all. The Patriots will certainly score over 30 points in this game, and their defense should give up under 10 points, if not another shutout here. I'm going to say that the Patriots win, and they do cover, I know it's insane, 23 points. the Jets couldn't move the ball versus the Browns. The only way they were moving the ball was dump-offs and runs with Le'Veon Bell. That won't happen versus New England. New England has shown that they want to continue to score till the game is over, as they did versus Miami. There's no reason not to take the Patriots here. Even if the Jets cover, I won't feel bad if I take the Patriots. So I'm going with the Patriots to win here and cover 23 points. They're just too dynamic on offense right now. They have too many weapons, and their defense is too good. Their secondary is outstanding. Their defensive line's playing very well. Jamie Collins looks like an absolute ridiculous stud right now, and I think they're just too good. So I'm going to go with the Patriots to win, especially if it's at home. If it was in New York, I might take New York plus 23, but because it's in New England, I'll take the Patriots. All right. And then we have the Detroit Lions at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a very interesting game. I think this is going to be a very, very good game. This game's in Philadelphia, which you know how much respect I have for the Eagles' home field advantage, for their fans, for how that fan base really gets going during those games. And they are also very banged up, very injured. And Detroit won a game versus a good opponent last week in the Chargers, where that game could have went either way. It went down to the wire. Both teams, they missed kicks and they missed out on some points. But I do really like watching that game, what Detroit has been doing offensively. They're staying balanced. I like that they're utilizing a lot of play action, a lot of multiple different variations and formations with multiple tight ends and formations and multiple receivers and other formations. Stafford is playing pretty well. I think he outplayed Phillip Rivers last week. And for the Eagles, there are a lot of flaws, a lot more than I anticipated. I mean, they're blitzing way too much. Their secondary is not very good and cannot play man-to-man with any consistency. Their defensive line's not getting a ton of pressure. And they're offensively, I mean, Wentz does not look as good as he has in the past. He's forcing a lot of things. He's holding on the ball too long. Their offensive line isn't as good as I thought it would be, or at least they aren't right now. And they're not running the ball in the way I want them to run the ball. Honestly, I think the Eagles would fix all their flaws offensively if they just became a little bit more of a power running team. They're playing too much in the shotgun. They're not using the strength of their offensive line to body teams and to really get after it in a power way. And I don't like that. I really don't like that. I think if they would have went with more of a running power approach versus Atlanta, they would have won the game. And I want to see Schwartz blitz less. He needs to blitz less, especially like in obvious situations where you're going to blitz. Okay, sure, a couple times it works, but when you continuously show the same blitzes versus veteran quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, they're going to say, hey, audible to Julio, screen pass, 70-yard touchdown. And that's what's going to happen. So when I look at this game, the biggest reason I'm going to take Detroit with the points. It's difficult for, I think, the Eagles to win this game by more than a touchdown, just because they have a lot of injuries in their receiving group right now, and Detroit's defense is good. And what I was impressed with Detroit last week was how they covered. I mean, they covered very well in the secondary versus the Chargers. They didn't really let anyone get open except for Keenan Allen, and there's no one on Philadelphia that's as dynamic as Keenan Allen is. I want to see how they go about covering Zach Ertz. That will be the main challenge of this game for them. On the other side of the ball, I think it's going to be difficult for the Eagles to cover the receivers of Detroit. So I think this game is going to be very, very close. But at the end of the day, I think I am going to go with Philadelphia to actually win the game. I do think it will be under 4 points, though, because they're at home. If this game was in Detroit, I would be willing to say that this game would be an upset for me. But because Carson Wentz is able to make these ridiculous plays on one leg falling down, and even with not a lot of great receivers around him last game, he was able to make a lot of big plays, and I really love the home field there. I think their defense will be a little bit PO'd, and I don't know if Detroit is dynamic enough in their passing game to take advantage of the Eagles' secondary the way Atlanta was. So all of that put together, I think it will be a defensive game. I would take the under in this one, and I would take Detroit with the points, but at the end of the day, Philadelphia at home and Carson Wentz balling out, I have to go with Philadelphia to win the game. All right, another game, and then we'll go to the comment section. The Carolina Panthers at Arizona. All right. Carolina, I mean, they're in a tough spot because Cam Newton's not playing. This game's in Arizona, and they're playing a dynamic quarterback in Kyler Murray who's just able to make plays, and he's different than a lot of different quarterbacks. I mean, it's like playing a faster version of Patrick Mahomes, but not as good as a passer yet. I mean, Kyler is very, very dynamic, and he stresses your defense out. And I do think that the Cardinals played pretty well. They played competitively versus Baltimore. The game was closer than I expected it to be. I'm going to go with the Cardinals plus the 2.5 right now. That's what it's at right now. The line will probably change because Cam is out. And I do expect the Arizona Cardinals to win the game. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals here. I want the Panthers to win, if I'm being honest, because I want to see when Cam eventually is healthy enough to perform better than he did last week, that this team can be competitive. But if they go 0-3, they're really in a tough hole. And maybe that will be enough for Carolina to step up and elevate and win this game because they know 0-3 is not going to be good, and that will be enough motivation. Sometimes that's enough in the NFL to win a game. But I just don't trust Kyle Allen. I mean, the guy's not very good. I don't think they have a backup right now that I'm willing to bet on. And Kyler Murray's too dynamic. Their receiving group with Christian Kirk and Larry Fitzgerald looks very good. David Johnson's going to be a tough cover for them. And honestly, guys like Gerald McCoy, he's looking old. He's looking slow. They're not getting enough pressure on the quarterback. I don't know if their defensive line is enough to take over this game versus a weak offensive line. And it's in Arizona. So at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Arizona to win this game. And for Cliff and Kyler to get their first official victory, because they tied the Detroit Lions, but to get their first victory of their careers versus Carolina and Kyle Allen. All right, let's get to the comment section. Where are the comments at? We have here. Okay. Who's better, 2013 Manning or 2018 Mahomes? 2013 Manning, I would say. Benjamin says Melvin Gordon gets traded mid-season. Fact or fiction? I will say that he does not get traded. I'm going to say it's fiction because I don't know if anyone's willing to actually trade for him. I think that's the biggest issue. It's not that the Chargers wouldn't trade him. It's that I don't think anyone is going to trade for him. Okay. Tyree says massacre. Sammy 38-17. Jets 14-13 says Buffalo Gaming. One Pride says New England by 50. Trivia says 38-13. Tyree says 50-3. Chris says Niners slowly building a good team. Their depth is young and solid. I'll get to the 49ers in a bit. Rob says Pats 59-3. To Flatriots 35-9 says Kevin Durcan. You know when Kevin Durcan is on the Patriots that they're going to win. Blake says 53-3. Holy crap. Chris says Pats by 14. Okay. So you have the Jets covering. Adam says 41-3. Poto says 58-3. I don't know if they're worse than the Dolphins. Who's worse? Okay, who's worse? The Jets with their third string quarterback or the Dolphins right now? Who's worse? Like, honestly. Bethel says Patriots 34-13. Atlanta fan says, man, Jets can't fire a head coach considering he has to play a third stringer. Strikeback says, yo, what's going on? Rob says, I think we see David Fells play for the Jets on Sunday. Robot Guy says, I got the Patriots. Not too sure if they'll win by that much, but I'd love to see it. Sure. All right, next game. EAGLES, says Benjamin. Eagles. One Pride says, my Lions. Sammy says 26-24 Eagles. Kobe says Lions win 27-24. Rob says 27-3 Eagles. Wow. Trivia says 23-21 Eagles. Blake says 13-10 upset Lions. Football Guy says 28-21 Eagles. Kevin Durant says Chargers are overrated, but I'm going to pick this game till I have an update on Philly's injuries. Smart man. Bodo says 27-17 Eagles. Robot Guy says Eagles 17-14. Buffalo says 14-7 for the Lions. One Prize says, I think Kerryon Johnson gets going this game. He was looking good last game. I will say CJ Anderson is cut. I think that's good for Kerryon Johnson. I think that's good for the Lions, and I like the 3 backs that they have now on their roster. I like them a lot better now. I actually think this affords more touches for the other guys, and I think that was a smart move. Detroit isn't good, says Kevin Durant. Bethel says Lions are one of the worst teams in the league. It means nothing that they beat Los Angeles. That was typical Chargers loss. One Pride says Panthers. Buffalo says Arizona. Arizona 31-23 says Benjamin. Cardinals stun them 24-16 says Kevin Durant. I don't think it would be stun them if Cam Newton's not playing. 26-20 Panthers. If Carolina loses, then I can't trust them. Can I say tie, says Robot? Sure, if you want. Blake says 17-12 Cardinals. I'm going to go 20-17 for Arizona. All right. Next game. Where are we at? That's the Giants game. Okay. Giants game's next. Giants take on Tampa Bay in Tampa Bay. Giants are plus 6.5 in this game. I am going to take Tampa Bay to win, and I am going to take the Giants to cover, though. I like what I've seen overall from Tampa Bay in the first 2 weeks. They lost the first game by the fashion and form that they did. I think it was 31-17, maybe it was 34-17 versus San Francisco because they threw 2 pick sixes. Their defense, though, is being slept on. It played very well versus Cam Newton and the Panthers last week, like really, really well. They've been very well coached, and the first week they played very well versus San Francisco, and you saw what San Francisco did versus Cincinnati. So I like Tampa Bay's defense right now. They're playing very well. They're playing competitive. I think they have a couple blitzes here and there that are working for them. Their secondary is playing way better than last year, and they're playing in the face of receivers, which the Giants, that might be where they struggle and end up losing this game, is they don't have the receivers to attack that secondary in man-to-man. And if the Tampa Bay's defense continues to play that way, they're going to win this game. On the flip the coin there, Daniel Jones is better than Eli. I'm 100% confident in saying that. And I think the Giants will be a better team. I think they'll be motivated. I think they'll be amped up that there's a new quarterback under center. I think Saquon will be better. I think their receivers will be better. I think the offense will be more creative because Pat Shurmur wants Daniel Jones to look good in his first game. I think overall, this is a game between 2 teams that I don't really love. This is two teams that I think are in the bottom 10 of the NFL. But Tampa Bay, I think, will win this game because they're a little bit more dynamic offensively in their passing game. Winston can make some throws to Mike Evans and Godwin. By the way, Godwin looks fantastic. And overall their defense is playing better, and I think I trust them. Plus, they're at home. So, Daniel Jones, I think, will make some plays. I think the Giants will score some points with Saquon, and that's going to be the key. They need to be able to run the ball, but the game will be close. And I think it will be actually a pretty exciting, down-to-the-wire type of football game. But at the end of the day, I just think the Bucs have a little bit more receiving options, a little bit more in the passing game, and that's why they'll end up winning this game. Plus, they have that home field advantage, where the Giants are going to be having to travel to Tampa Bay. And I know it's still East Coast, but it's going to be very warm in Tampa Bay. It's going to be different. You got the whole kind of humidity of Tampa Bay. And I think that's difficult for a road team, specifically a rookie quarterback, to deal with. So that's why I'm taking Tampa Bay to win. All right. Next game is the Houston Texans at the Los Angeles Chargers. This game is very, very interesting. I think it's between 2 teams that a lot of people like within the AFC. 2 teams that at least have playoff expectations, and 2 teams that made it last season. The Chargers had a really bad performance versus the Lions. They had 2 missed field goals. Phillip Rivers threw some bad passes. I mean, the only guy that really played well offensively was Keenan Allen. Mike Williams made a couple catches, but overall was shut down in that football game. And they seem to be lacking weapons outside of Allen and Eckler. I will say Eckler looks dynamic, and Eckler looks awesome. I will also say Justin Jackson is explosive, and I don't think they're missing Melvin Gordon. Defensively, I think they've played pretty well, specifically in their secondary, but they need to start stopping the run with more consistency because that's going to hurt them down the road. When I look at the matchups in this game, I think the Chargers are the perfect team to play versus Houston. You look at it, and Houston wants to throw the ball down the field. They have receivers. They have Deshaun Watson. What do the Chargers have? Well, they have speed. They can track you down. They can get after you with Bosa and Ingram. And Watson doesn't have a lot of time to throw, specifically on the road. Casey Hayward. You have King. You have a lot of different corners that you can match up with these different receivers of the Texans. And I don't think they'll be overmatched. And I don't think Houston has a dynamic rushing attack. They're not a power running team the way that Detroit is, the way that Indy is. Those were two teams that were difficult matchups for the Chargers. The Texans kind of play into what the Chargers want to do. You look on the other side of the ball, and yeah, the Chargers are not a very good offensive line, but Rivers will have matchups that he likes in the secondary versus the Texans. Who's going to cover Keenan Allen? I don't know. No one. Hey, who's going to cover Mike Williams? I don't know. No one. Who's going to cover Austin Eckler? I don't know. No one. So overall, I mean, even if the Texans get some pressure on Rivers, I think he'll be able to make these plays to these playmakers. And I do like the creativity in some areas, like some of their screen passes, some of their misdirection from the Chargers has been nice to see. But I just think those playmakers, Williams, Allen, Eckler, plus their pass rush, plus their secondary. The true strengths of the Chargers will shine through in this game at home, and they will end up winning it. I think they win, they cover the 3 points, and I think Houston fans are a little bit scratching their heads for what's the future of the Texans this season. The next game is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the San Francisco 49ers. Now, actually, guys, this is interesting because with this game and the next game, I saw the lines came out at +1 for the 49ers originally on Tuesday, and I immediately bet on the 49ers. The same thing for Seattle versus the Saints. As soon as I saw Seattle was +1 as well as San Francisco, because I knew the situations with Breeze and Ben were not very good, I immediately bet on them. Now the spread's -7 for San Francisco, and I think it's -5.5 for Seattle. So now I get them plus a point. I love those bets. And I was very happy that I went early on those games. Now, though, 7 is very interesting for the 49ers. They're getting a little bit of respect here. This is their home opener. That's something to be said because they were able to win 2 games back-to-back on the road to start the season, which is very difficult to do. And they dominated the Bengals. Now they're playing a team that is not very good in the secondary, and despite getting Minkah Fitzpatrick, I don't know how much they've improved. That's the question in this game. How much can the Steelers slow down the big play passing attack of San Francisco? How much are they able to slow down the rushing attack? Now, I do think Pittsburgh will play fairly well versus the running attack of San Francisco, which was really good versus the Bengals. And then that, therefore, will help them defend the play action of the 49ers and the deep passing attack of the 49ers because a lot of their big plays come off of play action. But I do think the 49ers will win this game. And I do think it's going to be because of their defense. I think when you have not a rookie, but a first-time starter on the road in his first game, it's going to be difficult, specifically in a home opener. The 49ers defense looks really good, and I don't know if the Steelers have enough dynamic receivers to make anything happen. I don't think, Juju will be too much of a mismatch for this defense, and I think the defensive line is going to be really, it's a lot better than Seattle's. San Francisco has a legitimate pass rushing defensive line. I think they'll be able to slow down the rushing attack for the Steelers, putting the ball in Rudolph's hands even more than it would originally, and I do think he'll make 1 or 2 mistakes that will not cost them the game, that will help the 49ers win the game. I think the 49ers, They've shown that they're able to take the ball away better than they were last year, and they'll do that in this game with maybe 1 or 2 interceptions, and that will set up their offense with a couple of scores that enable them to win this game and that enable them to ultimately cover the 7 points. Now, I wanted to take the Steelers +7, but at the end of the day, I just see San Francisco being a little bit too much from that perspective of home opener, defense is better than you think, and then you look at the Kyle Shanahan attack of their offense, and they'll be able to create some big plays versus a lackluster secondary. So I have to go with the 49ers to win and to cover. I want Rudolph to do well. I want the Steelers to do well. But I'm also a big-time fan of the 49ers, and I think they're going to continue to prove people that they are a legitimate team, and that's what they're going to do in this matchup versus the Steelers. All right. Let's get to the comments one more time before the final 3 games, which is Seattle, New Orleans, Cleveland, the Rams, and Washington, Chicago. I also need to get to the man who just super chatted me, Mr. Bodo. Bodo with $49. Thank you, Bodo. I appreciate that, brother. That means a lot. I appreciate you, man. He says Pittsburgh is a mess. Their secondary is a mess. Even though everybody loves Rudolph, their defense is a mess. I will say Rudolph was impressive in his first game. The question is, can he keep that up? I think he can be a pretty good quarterback, but he's not Big Ben, especially in his first game. And we've seen, they don't have an Antonio Brown, and they don't have a Le'Veon Bell. They're just strictly lacking playmakers, and it's not like their scheme is making up for it right now, and their defense is certainly not making up for it. So it's tough for me to say that the Steelers can win a game on the road, especially with the way their defense has just absolutely been really, really terrible. So, yeah, I want the Steelers to be able to bounce back and be able to do something without Ben. I just can't say that. I can't predict it. It's hard to do. And the Niners look good. So I got to go with the team that has looked better so far this season. And again, thank you for the super chat. If anybody else wants to super chat, I would truly appreciate it. As Bodo knows, as he just donated, it helps the content of the channel. It helps me be on YouTube more because I can accept that I'm actually making some money doing this. So if you want to see more videos from me, that's the best way of doing it, is super chatting me. So I'm just going to put that out there. Thank you, Bodo. All right, let's get to the comments. Bucks 17-14 says Buffalo. Rob says 24-17 Bucks. Kevin Durkant says 31-24 Bucks. Sammy says 28-24 Bucks. Robot says Bucks. Giants, don't at me, says One Pride. Benjamin says Bucks 31-24. Bucks 24-13, says Bodo. Blake says 31-21. Football Guy says 20-17. A lot of Bucks fans in this chat. Atlanta fan says Vernon Hargreaves finally playing well for the Bucks. That's true. Yeah, he looked like a complete bust a couple years ago. You're spot on with that. I completely agree. Kevin Urquette says Todd Bowles deserves more credit. I totally agree with that as well. Benjamin says my wild cards are Minnesota and Atlanta. One Pride says I love the Arians hire for the Bucks. I did as well, but they're doing really good things with the talent that they have. At least last season did not look like it was there. And maybe it is there. Maybe the coaching is just that much of a difference for them. Blake says 42-35 Texans. Wow. Bodo says, I predict Phillip Rivers will be down with 20 seconds left, and he has to go 80 yards. Well, that's going to be difficult. 67-7 Chargers, says Duke. Buffalo says 18-16 Texans. Atlanta fan says Texans need to just pound the ball with Carlos Hyde. He's done surprisingly well for them. I agree with that. Duke Johnson can't do anything running the ball. 25-9 Giants, says Tyree. Texans 31-17. Wow, a lot of Texans predictions. Bodo says 18-14 Bolts. 23-21 Kevin Durkant says for the Chargers. Benjamin says 34-21 for the 49ers. 26-16 49ers, says Kevin Durkant. Buffalo says 28-10 49ers. Football Guy says 20-17 49ers. 28-14 49ers, says Blake. A lot of Niners fans. This is getting interesting. Breida is playing with a chip on his shoulder, says Rob. He needs more credit, too. That's a guy that needs more credit. He's really, really good. Atlanta fan says, could see Pittsburgh surprising and upset the 49ers, but I wouldn't be confident enough in that. So, yeah, I agree with that. Roland says, did I miss the picks? What about the Lions? I already picked the Lions. You could scroll back and check it out, or check it out once the video is over. Appreciate you being here, though. All right, let's get back to the next game. The next game, we have the New Orleans Saints and the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, that's not the right one. So I'll scroll up. Boom. All right. Saints at Seahawks. Seahawks, according to this, is -4.5. I think in some places it might even be 5 or 5.5, but I'm going to go off what I put here, which is 4.5. I am going to take the Seahawks to win this game. The 4.5 is interesting. It depends for me. I think if Bridgewater is the starting quarterback of this game for the entirety of the game, Seattle will cover this game. If Taysom Hill gets his shine and gets his opportunity, I think this game could be very interesting. I think that New Orleans could keep it competitive because I think Taysom Hill is better for the Saints. I think the Saints have a better chance of going into Seattle and winning if Taysom Hill is their guy, and I think they have a better chance of beating Dallas next week if Taysom Hill is their guy. Get me here. Bridgewater is a game manager. Bridgewater is not very good. You saw it last week. We saw it last year. We saw it in the preseason. He's not a very good player. At the very most, he's a game manager. And even in the Vikings, I mean, he wasn't never fantastic. He had Adrian Peterson. He was able to run the ball. He had a great defense, a top 5 defense in Minnesota, and that carried him to wins. He didn't really win those games, per se. Taysom Hill, what he can do for the Saints is similar to what Lamar Jackson can do for the Ravens. And Sean Payton is creative enough to create this offense for Taysom Hill to throw off opposing defenses. You don't know what's coming. You don't have any tape on it. And it could be big plays. And that's the thing with Taysom Hill that Teddy doesn't have. He doesn't create big plays, Teddy Bridgewater. Taysom Hill could do that. I want to see how much they're splitting the two of them. I want to see how much Taysom Hill is utilized. But because I don't know and this is unpredictable, I'm going to go with the Seahawks here to win and to cover. I think that at home they're a different team, as we know. That's a really hostile environment. And for Teddy Bridgewater, a guy that doesn't look so hot, I don't think that's going to be good. Plus, you look at the Saints, and they've given up some big plays in the secondary. I think Metcalf, Lockett, they could hit a couple big plays in the secondary that will put them over the top to win this game. I do think the Saints could stop the run of the Seahawks, but Russell Wilson has looked fantastic this year. He looks in the peak and the prime of his career right now. And yeah, I'm concerned with the Seahawks secondary, but really the Saints, if they don't have Drew Brees, which they don't have really the quarterback to take advantage of it, especially if they don't put in Taysom Hill. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks here to win and to cover. I think they're just the better team. They're well coached. They'll be prepared. And I think they're, with Russell Wilson there, it's too much. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Okay. The Sunday night football game, which might be the game of the week. Where's my game of the week here? I can't find it. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. All right. Sunday night football might be the game of the week. It's the Rams at the Browns. It's in Cleveland. The first time on Sunday night for, I think, over 10 years. Odell Beckham Jr., 89-yard touchdown plus a one-hand catch on Monday Night Football, looking like Odell Beckham Jr. Their defense dominated the Jets in New York. The Rams just beat the Saints. They showed them who's boss. They showed them who the true NFC champion is, and they popped Drew Brees, and they got him out of the game. And Cooper Kupp looks fantastic. Sean McVay, Wade Phillips, they always have this team prepared. This game is going to be entertaining. This game has personalities. This game has excitement. I am going with the Rams to win. I'm going with the Rams to cover. There are a few reasons for this. The two biggest reasons are, one, Baker Mayfield has not played well this year. Baker Mayfield has been confused by opposing defensive coordinators and opposing defenses. Greg Williams did some tricks on him last week and did confuse him. And week 1, the Titans' Dean Pease certainly confused him. This week, he plays Wade Phillips, who he's going to throw some things at Baker that he's never seen before. And Baker has shown that he's a little bit antsy. He's a little bit jumpy in the pocket, and he's not always making the best decisions. The other big thing is, I don't know if the Browns are able to block Aaron Donald. I don't know if they're able to block that defensive line. The Browns' offensive line has not looked very good. What the Browns need to do here in this game to win is to stay balanced, to run Nick Chubb, and to absolutely spam Odell to the end degree. I mean, to the most you possibly can. I don't think anyone on the Rams can cover Odell, and maybe they'll have to double him all game, which is going to allow other matchups. David Njoku being out is a big-time loss for them because he's a dynamic playmaker who's a mismatch. And defensively, even though I really like the Browns' defense right now, I think they're playing very well for the most part. And Myles Garrett looks like a top 3 defensive player in the league, top 5 easily. I mean, he looks like a defensive player of the year candidate right now. And I do think they could get pressure after Jared Goff. I just think McVay is way too good. He's way too good of a play caller. I think they're always prepared. They're well coached. There's no situation that phases them. They're a team that can go on the road and they can play in a hostile environment, which Cleveland will be, and they can win. So I have confidence in that regard. I'm going to go with the Rams. They're just a proven team, and they know how to win games. They play with a reckless abandon. They play with a lot of confidence. Jared Goff is not making a lot of mistakes. And Baker Mayfield, he might make a lot of mistakes, which has me siding with the Rams to win and to cover. And the last game is the Monday Nighter. The Monday Nighter is the Chicago Bears at the Washington Redskins. Chicago is minus 4.5 points in this game. This game is difficult to pick because Chicago has not looked great in either game, and they probably could have lost last week versus Denver against their old foe, Vic Fangio. They definitely did not look good week 1, and Trubisky has not looked good all season. Their defense still is good, though, and they're a lot more talented than Washington. Even if this game's in Washington, in Monday night, which typically the Monday night dog is something to pick, I'm going to go with Chicago to win. But I am going to take the 4.5 points for Washington because I don't know if Chicago can score enough points. I think Chicago can win this game, but it's going to be something like 17-10. It's going to be something like 17-13, 13-9. It's going to be something really low scoring. The game is not going to be very exciting. Washington's defense is better than people think, specifically up front. And I don't know if Trubisky is quite the passer, and they don't have the weapons to expose this secondary, which is exposable in Washington. Maybe Nagy draws up some plays, and it's just fantastic and magical. But I think Washington is too good up front where they're not going to be overpowered. And I think Washington is going to be able to stay in this game to the very end. And the Bears will just be too talented at the end of the day. I think Matt Nagy, serious question marks about his offensive prowess right now. I have not been a huge fan of what he's been doing. Again, another team, just like Doug Peterson, needs to get under center more, needs to run the ball from under center more, be more of a power team. They're not doing that. And I have serious question marks about the Bears right now. So I'm not super confident in the Bears. I do think the Redskins match up well with them. And maybe the Redskins won't be able to score very many points, but I do think they'll be able to keep it within the 4.5. So I'm going to go Washington plus 4.5, but Chicago to win. All right, guys, those are my picks for week 3 of the NFL season. Now, for my best bets of the week. Now, I already told you a couple of the bets that I have made already, which aren't actually available now because I did take San Francisco plus the 1. I did take the Seattle Seahawks plus the 1 point before the actual NFL world knew that Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger were going to be out. I kind of did risk it there, but it was an accurate risk, and I was right. So I'm happy about those picks. But because those picks aren't actually available at the moment, I'm going to give you some other picks. I really do like the Rams minus the 3 points, even though it's on the road on Sunday night versus the Browns. Like I brought up, I think Aaron Donald's going to be a mismatch for that offensive line who struggled. I think Wade Phillips is going to be able to confuse Baker Mayfield on a couple of plays here and there. And the Rams are a proven veteran team that can go into a hostile environment and win the game. Plus, I don't know if they're able to cover Cooper Kupp in the slot. They don't really have anyone there. And McVay is just too good of a play caller. I think they'll be able to take advantage of the Cleveland defense a few times to put up enough points to win this game. So I like that game. The other games I do like is Detroit plus the 7. I think Detroit matches up well with the Eagles. Plus, I do believe that the Eagles being injured, specifically with their wide receiver group, I like what I saw from the Lions defense last week. They were able to cover the Chargers very well with their secondary. Coleman played well. They had some problems with Keenan Allen, but Darius Slay is there. And Rashawn Melvin looks good. Plus, their D-line is stout, and the Eagles won't be able to run the ball. They haven't been able to all season. And Carson Wentz has at times made some really bonehead decisions. Plus, Matt Stafford's looking good. Kerryon Johnson's looking good. They have a lot of receivers that will be difficult to cover for a lackluster Eagles secondary. So I like Detroit plus the 7 points. You can always bet on New England, but I'm not going to call that one of my best bets of the week. And the final game that I will say that I like is going to be, trying to go through it and making sure I'm not missing anything. The final game I do like is Baltimore plus 7. It might be 6.5 in some places, and I would also recommend betting with the 6.5. I think Baltimore matches up pretty well with Kansas City. The first thing that I like is that they have a very good coaching staff, which defensively is going to be able to create a scheme to at least slow down Kansas City in certain aspects of this game. They have a very good secondary, and without Tyreek Hill, which was the main issue that they couldn't cover last year, it's going to be a challenge for Kansas City, at least early on, to adjust to that defense and to be able to beat that secondary. And I could see Baltimore fooling Patrick Mahomes in a New England Belichickian way in a couple of plays where Baltimore can take advantage. You look at the other side of the ball, Lamar Jackson is dynamic, he'll create big plays, and I do think it will be difficult for the Chiefs to both stop the speed of the receivers of Baltimore, Mark Andrews one-on-one in man-to-man, and then also the running game of Baltimore. So I think even if the game is a shootout, Baltimore will be able to score and keep this within a touchdown. I think all three of those games are good bets. Baltimore plus 7, the Rams minus 3, and then the last one was Detroit plus 7 as well. So those are my best bets of the week, other than the Seattle and the San Francisco game that I previously mentioned. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed week number 3, the picks, the predictions. If you did, Gronk spike the like button, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos just like this. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching, and peace out.